Welcome back to the Cosy Rosie Crochet channel, and today I'm sharing with you the back panel of the Cable and Crossed Cardigan. If you haven't already, I would recommend that you do check your gauge before you go any further to make sure that you have enough yarn all in the same lot number to make the size cardigan that you would like to make. As a reminder, here is the size chart, and we are making the back panel today. So it's half of the bust size that we are making, and that sets the size for your whole pattern. When I'm giving you stitch counts in this video today, they're going to be in size order, starting from extra small, small, medium, large, 2, 3, 4, up to 5XL. And that's the same throughout all of these patterns until we get to the sleeves anyway. That's a whole other conversation. So the first part of the back panel is going to take us all the way up to the bottom of our armholes, and then we are going to come in to start creating those inset sleeves. You can find the written pattern linked below in the description box, which will take you through to my website. You'll see the pattern for the back panel. You'll also find a link in the description box to purchase your yarn. You can even treat yourself to a whole kit to make the Cable and Crossed cardigan in this Serdar dual spun Aran. You'll also find a link to the printable pattern as well, which is available in my shop, my Etsy shop, and of course my Ravelry shop too. Assuming that you have made your gauge swatch and you've confirmed that you know which hook size you're using, I am using a 5.5mm hook today. Your gauge swatch will tell you if you need to use the same size hook or if you need to go up a hook size as well, based on the yarn that you're using. I've got some scissors, a darning needle and some stitch markers. We're probably not going to need them for a little while, but it's good to have them to hand. So gather your materials and let's get started. So our back panel is created working in turned rows, and we're going to start by making a chainless foundation or a foundation chain. I'm not going to show you how to do the chainless foundation. I'm going to show you how to do the cheat way of doing it because it's my preferred way of doing it. If you do want to learn how to do a chainless foundation for your foundation row, I've popped a link in the top right hand corner for you here for you to learn how to do it, and I'll give you the counts for both your starting chain and for your chainless foundation. So the way that I'm going to be working my chain for this tutorial is kind of like a cheats way of doing a chainless foundation. I find it quicker, but you may find that it's just quicker to do a chainless foundation. And the reason that we're doing this technique is because it creates a lovely stretchy start to our project so that the top and the bottoms look really neat and tidy. I will show as we go through why that's so important. And the way that I do it looks just like a chainless foundation. So it gives you the best possible start to your project. For the foundation row of your back panel for the Cable and Crossed cardigan, extra small is doing 67 chains, small will be doing 75, medium will be doing 83, a large will be a 91, extra large will be 95, 2XL will be 107, 3XL will be 115, 4XL will be 123, and 5XL will be 131. That's if you're just doing your normal chain, the same as I am doing, just by bringing your hook through and pulling it through the loop. Those are the numbers you need to make for your foundation chain. If you wanted to do a chainless foundation or a foundation single crochet, so extra small will be doing 66, small will be doing 74, medium will be doing 82, large will be doing 90, extra large 94, 2XL will be doing 106, 3XL will be 114, 4XL will be doing 122, and 5XL will be doing 130. If you're making a chainless foundation or a foundation single crochet, continue on and make that foundation chain, and I'll meet you for row 1. If, like me, you're making a beginning chain, I'll meet you in a moment once you've worked your chain so that we can continue on with our foundation row. So once you have completed your beginning chain, for an extra small you should have 67, a small will have 75, a medium will have 83, a large will have 91, extra large 95, 2XL will have 107, 3XL will be 115, 4XL will be 123, and 5XL will be 131. Once you have your beginning chain, we're going to work 1 US single crochet into the second chain from hook and each chain along. But instead of working underneath that top loop of our chain, we are going to flip our chain over and work into these back bumps. So you'd just work either through the top of your chain picking up the 2 loops, which I never do, work under the top loop, or you can work into this back bump here. Just underneath where that yarn is coming out is that first chain, so we can't work in there anyway. So we're going into this first back bump. So there's our chain as it would normally show. Just flip it over and you've got this little back bump that we're going to insert our hook underneath. Sometimes I encourage it on with my nail. Sometimes it needs a little bit of help just to get that first one on. And then we work our US single crochet in the same way as normal. We just yarn over, pull through, and yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. And then you can see where you've worked, so we're going under the next back loop. From the front, your chain will still look normal for the next one to work, and it's this back bump here. So you can see them all the way across. So we're just inserting our hook, working a US single crochet, same as a UK double crochet, into each back bump across our chain. Do a couple more so I can show you why we're doing this. The reason that we're doing this is it makes our chain a lot more stretchy than if we were just to work into that top loop of our chain. And if you're familiar with doing a chainless foundation, this is exactly how it looks. So you end up having the other half of your chain sitting on the other side, and you've got your stitch showing on the top. So it looks like you've got the perfect start. Well, you have got the perfect start. I just find this quicker than working a chainless foundation personally, but you can of course do that option if you want to. So continue to work 1 US single crochet into the back bump of each chain along, and I will meet you at the end of our foundation row. Just working my last back bump, which is always a little bit tricky because it's incredibly tight, and that takes me all the way across. And I'm guessing that those that have done a foundation chain think, oh, that looks really similar. So you should have a nice stretch. Mine is a little bit twiddly if yours is, so don't be worried about that just yet. Because we've just done a run of single crochets, the tension tends to get a little bit off, and as you build on that, it will get less twiddly, I promise. So at the end of our foundation row, regardless if you've done the full chain and then worked into it, or if you've done a foundation chain, you should have the following stitch counts of US single crochets. For an extra small, you should have 66, 74 for a small, 82 for a medium, 90 for a large, 94 for an XL, 106 for your 2XL, 114 for your 3XL, 122 for your 4XL, and then 130 single crochets for your 5XL. We are now going to start our pattern repeat now that we have this foundation row done. So we're going to start with row 1, which is the right side of our project. We start by making a chain of 3, 2 and 3. We're turning our work and working back across in this row. Now this chain 3 counts as our first double crochet of the row, so we're not going to work into that stitch at the bottom of our chain 3. We're going to start by making our cable stitch. So we skip the next stitch after our chain 3. So there's our chain 3 stitch. We're skipping that one because the chain 3 counts. And then we skip the next stitch, starting almost in that 3rd stitch along. So that chain 3 counts. We skip the first. We're going to yarn over, ready to insert our hook into this stitch here. So we insert our hook and work a US double crochet. So we bring our loop up, pull through 2 and yarn over to pull through 2. Looks like we have a really big gap here, but we're going to work back into this skip stitch in a moment. So for the remainder of the cable stitch, we work another double crochet into the next stitch along. That's number 2. And we're going to work a 3rd double crochet into the next stitch along. So at the moment we have that chain 3, a skip stitch, and then 1 double crochet into each of the next 3, and we're going to work back into that stitch that we skipped. So we yarn over the hook and we're inserting our hook all the way back into that skip stitch. So I kind of fold mine over, insert the hook into the stitch. It's really hard to show you this, but you can see that that's the skip stitch. So that was the chain 3. There's a gap there. So we're yarning over and inserting, yarning over, bring a loop up, and we bring it all the way up to the height of our stitch so that we don't squeeze these stitches underneath. We have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, and pull through 2 again. And it should look a little bit like that. Now it is a double-sided stitch, but this is the right side that's facing us now. Now we're going to work this cable stitch all the way across. So you can see that we've worked into this stitch here because there's something coming out of it. So we skip the next, and then we're going to work 1 double crochet into each of the next 3. So we yarn over, skip the next, insert into the next one across, leaving that skip stitch unworked. And that's double crochet number 1, yarn over and work number 2, and then yarn over and work number 3. To complete the stitch, we're going to work back into this stitch that we skipped. So we yarn over, I kind of pinch it where I need to be inserting so I can see where it is, insert the hook, yarn over. I've got barely any tension on my yarn so that when I bring it up to the right height, I can then put my tension back on, yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops, yarn over and pull through the last 2. So we're not looking for this to be super loose or super tight. It's just hugging around those posts of those stitches. We'll do another one together. So we worked into this stitch. So this is the stitch we're going to skip. You can see that's worked into. We skip 1, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, just double checking I've skipped, yep. That's 2, and that's number 3. We are then going to yarn over, working back into that stitch that we skipped. Yarn over, bring our loop up to the height of our current stitch. We yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. So we're going to repeat this all the way across, skipping 1, working 1 double crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. That's number 2 and number 3. We yarn over to work back into that skipped, making sure we bring it all the way up, pull through 2, pull through 2. So continue to repeat that all the way across until you have just 1 stitch remaining, which is going to be there because I've just twisted mine, and that's where I'm going to meet you. You should have 1, 2, 3 double crochets and 1 skip stitch that you've just missed to work into to create that last cable stitch, and then we're going to work a final double crochet into our last stitch. So continue to repeat that across and I'll meet you for our last stitch. So I've worked all the way along and I have just 1 stitch remaining. I've worked those 3 double crochets and I'm just stopping here to show you probably one of the most common errors made with this stitch pattern is we just carry on and make that final double crochet. If we were to do that, our stitch count would be wrong. We need to remember to go back and just work that final cable stitch, making sure we get that 4th stitch worked back in and across, otherwise we'd lose a stitch. Once you've worked that final cable stitch and you have just 1 stitch remaining, we are simply going to work 1 double crochet into the top of that last stitch. I'm a huge fan of this pattern. I love this stitch pattern so much. I really do like it. So at the end of row 1, everyone is going to have 2 double crochets. We have that beginning chain 3 and that last double crochet. They both count as double crochets. And then we just simply need to count the number of cable stitches that we had. Now I'm making an extra small for the sake of this tutorial. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I have the right amount. I have 16 cable stitches. So you just need to count each of your cables. So the extra small will have 16, a small will have 18 cables, a medium will have 20, large will have 22, an extra large will have 23, a 2XL will have 26, A 4XL, no, a 3XL will have 28, a 4XL will have 30, and a 5XL will have 32. So make sure that you have the right number of cables, and of course that every single one of them has that beautiful strip across it, otherwise you may have forgotten to work into that skip stitch. Going straight into row 2, we're going to start with a turning chain of 1, and we are simply going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So we're just working 1 single crochet into the same as our chain 1, and then we're working 1 single crochet into each stitch across back to the end of the row. We need to work 1 single crochet into the top of our turning chain, and I'm going to meet you there to make sure that we do work into the right chain, because it will help with your joining when we come to sewing our cardigan together. So continue across working 1 single crochet, and I'll meet you at the last stitch for row 2. Mine is incredibly curly. It's not real, I promise you it's not real. It's a simple tug and it stops curling. So I've just reached back to my turning chain, and I just wanted to show you where your third chain is. It's that little tiny one, of course it is. So you can of course work into your second chain if you want to, but for accuracy we should be kind of pushing our hook through that top of our turning chain. Ooh, it does go through, but I want to point out that I do try and grab 2 loops of that turning chain to help bring it up nice and straight. So at the end of row 2, so it'd be 66 single crochets for an extra small, 74, 82, 90, 94, 106, 114, 122 and 130 single crochets. That is of course dependent on the size that you are making. It's basically the starting count that we had at the beginning of the end of our foundation row. Now going into row 3, we're working our second special stitch that sets up the cable and crossed cardigan. You can kind of guess what we're going to be doing. We're going to start with our turning chain of 3, which of course does count as a double crochet, which means that we don't work into that stitch at the bottom of our chain 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, there's the stitch, we're not working into it, and we're starting our special stitch, which this time is only worked over 2 stitches. So we're going to skip the next stitch. So we're skipping the one under the chain, skipping the next stitch, and we're yarning over, ready to work a double crochet into the next stitch along. And this time we're making a crossed double crochet. So rather than doing the whole of the cable, we're simply working 1 double crochet and then working back into that skipped stitch with our next double crochet. A little bit easier to get this one back up to the right height. So I'll do another one with you. We skip the next, working into the next stitch along. So we skip 1, insert, we yarn over, bring our loop up, pull through 2 as a normal double crochet. Then we're yarning over to work back into that skip stitch, bring our loop up and around, pull through 2, pull through 2. And it's like a mini version of the cable stitch really. You've got that lovely little stripe just across it, just on a smaller scale. So we skip the next, insert our hook into the next to work our double crochet, and then we cross back around our double crochet at the front to work our second double crochet. So just like the, well, not quite so much as the cable stitch, it's not quite as nice on the back, which is why this is now our right side facing us once again. So we're going to continue to work across, skipping 1, working a double crochet in the next, before working a double crochet back into that skipped stitch. So continue to repeat that all the way across, and I will meet you where we have just 1 stitch remaining after our final crossed double crochet, and we'll be working a final double crochet into the top of our last stitch. Continue across and I'll meet you at the end of row 3. So I've just worked almost finished my last cable, my last crossed double crochet. And then we just need to work a final double crochet into that last stitch. Aren't they cute? Okay, so we have 1 double crochet at each end because that chain 3 counted. And then we just need to count our pairs of cross double crochets. So for the extra small, you will have 32 cross double crochets, 36 for a small, 40 for a medium, 44 for a large, 46 for an extra large, 52 for a 2XL, 56 for a 3XL, 60 for a 4XL, 64 for a 5XL. And you just need to count the pairs across there, so it's nice and easy for the counting too. So for row 4, we are simply working a repeat of row 2, where we make a turning chain of 1, working 1 double crochet into the same as our chain 1, and 1 double crochet into each stitch across. So it's a nice easy row repeat of row 2. So continue across, working 1 single crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 4, where we're going to be talking about how many repeats we need to do. Just going to interrupt my crocheting to show you the type of knots you are likely to get in your Sirdar dual spun. These are not knots, but they feel like they are completely tied up. And the way to break them without breaking them is just to pull the knot itself apart. Don't pull on the ends like tightly, because this is quite a fibrous yarn and it does tangle very easily. Just a little brief interlude there. I'm just working a final single crochet in the top of my turning chain, not into that nice easy space, just above it. Working a final single crochet into that third chain, and we should still have the same stitch count as we had at the end of row 2, which I'll quickly run through for you. So it'd be 66 single crochets for an extra small, 74, 82, 90, 94, 106, 114, 122 and 130 for the 5XL. If I bring this loop up, because let me just actually put that in there so I don't lose it. We have our pattern repeat, at least for the first part of our pattern. We are going to continue to repeat rows 1 to 4 that we've just worked. So from that cable stitch, a row of single crochets, a row of cross double crochets and a row of singles. We're going to repeat rows 1 to 4 for a number of times depending on what length and size you're making. I'm going to pop it on the screen to make things really easy because it is a lot of information. So first thing, you need to decide which length you are making. There are 3 length options available: the hip length, the tunic length and the thigh length. So for the hip length, we're going to be repeating rows 1 to 4 for a further 9 times for an extra small and a small, 8 times for a medium, a large, extra large, 2XL and a 3XL. A 4XL is going to repeat rows 1 to 4 7 more times, and 5XL is going to repeat it for a further 6 times. For the tunic length, we're going to be repeating rows 1 to 4. Extra small, going to repeat it for a further 13 times, as is a small. A medium, large, extra large, 2X, 3X are all going to repeat for a further 12 times. 4XL is repeating for a further 11 times, and 5XL is repeating for a further 10 more times. So for the thigh length, you're going to repeat rows 1 to 4 for a further 16 times for an extra small and a small, 15 times for a medium, large, extra large, 2X and 3XL, 14 times for a 4XL, and 13 times for a 5XL. Now once you've worked all of those repeats, we'll be going on to shape our armholes. So we're going to be coming in on each side of our back panel to bring in those inset areas for our sleeves. So continue on to work your repeats and I'll meet you to shape the armholes. So once you have worked all your repeats, this is my actual cardigan, so I've made myself an extra large. You should have quite a lot, quite a deep cardigan. And we are going to continue on to shaping our armholes. Now I'm recommending that you fasten off once you're 100% sure you've got no mistakes, no errors, then you can fasten off and we're going to rejoin. So I'm not going to leave too much of a tail because yarn is precious. So I'm just going to fasten off and pull that through. I'll weave that end a little bit later. And at the moment I have the right side of my project facing. No, I don't. I have the wrong side. Now, how can I tell, you ask? Because of this cross double crochet. So we need to make sure that we have the right side of our project facing. So it's like we're turning to work our next row, and your cross double crochets will look nice and pretty. How do I explain that? So you just see how you've got your loosey bits at the back of your cross double crochets. They're not as loose on the front, and your stitches will be facing that way. And we're working back across as if we're starting. We've just turned and continued on. So you've got your tail, and we're working inwards from this side as if we're carrying on the next row. We're going to rejoin our yarn, and where we rejoin depends on which size we're making. So we are going to be rejoining our yarn with the right side of our project facing us as if we are working back along the row. So an extra small and a small are going to be rejoining in the 9th stitch along. A medium, large, extra large and 2XL are all going to be joining in the 13th stitch. And then a 3, 4 and a 5XL will all be rejoining in the 17th stitch. I'm going to pop my hook in there for a moment. Now the reason that we are leaving this section here is this is where we're going to be attaching our sleeve to really give us a great inset sleeve, reducing that bulk we sometimes get with those square shapeless cardigans. So to rejoin the yarn, I'm simply going to place my tail at the back of my hook and pull through. Now we're going straight into our cable stitch row. So we're going to start with a chain of 3. So we just yarn over and pull through 3 times. We're then going to continue to repeat our stitch pattern for our cable stitches. So we're skipping the next, working into the next stitch, and I'm also going to work over my end because why not? Working 1 double crochet into each of the next 3, just as we were doing before. We're then going to work back into that skipped stitch, bringing it all the way up and working those pull through 2, pull through 2. Make sure that your joining of the yarn is not too loose, and you can leave it out from here if you like to weave in properly later. And we're going to continue to repeat across, working our cable stitch, but we're not going the whole way across because we're going to want to skip the same number of stitches on the other side of our back panel. So let me share with you how many cables you need to do depending on which size you are making. Let me get that one finished off. So for a extra small, you're going to be making 12 cables. For a small and a medium, you're going to make 14 cables. A large is 16 cables. Extra large is going to be 17. A 2 and a 3XL will be making 20 cables. A 4XL will be making 22. And a 5XL will be 24 cable stitches. Once you've worked those cables, meet me there and we'll work our final stitch. We'll be ready to continue on to row 2. Once you've worked those cable stitches that you needed for your size, we are simply going to work 1 double crochet into that next stitch along, and we are leaving the rest of the stitches unworked. So we have the same stitches skipped on each end of our back panel. So at the end of row 1 of shaping your armholes, you should have, of course, you should have a double crochet at each end, or chain 3 at this end, and then you should have, for an extra small, you should have 12 cable stitches, 14 for a small and a medium, 16 for a large, 17 for an extra large, 20 for a 2 and a 3XL, 22 cables for your 4XL, and of course 24 for your 5XL. Now going into row 2 of shaping the armhole, we are leaving these remaining stitches unworked. So we're going to make our turning chain of 1, and we are simply working 1 single crochet. And we are simply going to work 1 single crochet into the same as our chain 1 and 1 single crochet into each stitch across the top of our cable stitches. Just as we were doing before, it's just we have these areas of unworked stitches to create those armholes later on. So continue across, working 1 single crochet into each stitch across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2. I'm just working a final single crochet into the top of that joining chain 3. Gosh, that's tight. Oh, there we go. Done. So your stitch count at the end of row 2 will be 50 for an extra small, 58 for a small and a medium, 66 for a large, 70 for an extra large, 82 for a 2 and a 3XL, 90 for a 4XL, and 98 for a 5XL. You can guess what we're going to be doing in row 3. We're going to start with our turning chain of 3. And we're working our cross double crochets, so we skip the stitch underneath our chain 3 because that counts, skip the next, and work your first double crochet into the next, and then work your cross double crochet back into that skip stitch. It's just as we were doing before, it's just we have less stitches to work because we've come in for that shoulder shaping. So continue across, working your cross double crochets until you have just 1 stitch remaining at the end, where we're going to be working that extra double crochet at the end. Continue across and I'll meet you at the end of row 3. I'm just working my final cross double crochet, and of course working a final double crochet into that last stitch along. If I can pick up both loops, where's it gone? There it is. So we're just continuing that same stitch pattern up, just leaving out those spaces for the shoulders. So at the end of row 3, you should of course have your 2 double crochets, 1 at each end, remembering that chain 3 counts. And then for an extra small, you'll have 24 cross double crochets, 28 for a small and a medium, 32 for a large, 34 for an extra large, 40 for a 2 and 3XL, 44 for a 4XL, and 48 for a 5XL. With row 4, we are of course repeating row 2 with a turning chain of 1 and working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So as I work this row, I will share with you and pop on the screen the number of repeats you need to do. And I'll pop onto the screen the number of repeats you need to do based on your size. So the number of repeats you need to do for this portion of the pattern is not impacted by the length that you are making, because you've already created the length in the bottom half of the back panel. It's also really important to note that you don't need to rejoin the yarn again. Just repeat from the timestamp of row 1, which is where we're starting our chain 3. You don't need to rejoin the yarn, you've done that bit. We're just carrying on to achieve the same stitch count. So we're going to be repeating rows 1 to 4 for a further 3 times for an extra small and a small, 4 times for a medium, large, extra large, 2 and 3XL. A 4XL is going to be repeating rows 1 to 4 a further 5 times, and a 5XL will be repeating a further 6 times. Once you've worked those repeats, you'll be ready to fasten off and weave in those ends. You can of course then use the schematic, which can be viewed on the website, to block your back panel to size, and your blocking technique will of course depend on the type of fibre of yarn that you're using. So if I'll be blocking using a steam blocking, it will help set the acrylic in place, and that light heat from the steam, I do keep it quite far away, won't melt the yarn. If you need more help with your blocking techniques, I've linked in the top right hand corner different ways to block different fibres and the different techniques that are available. So continue on making your back panel. Make sure you come along and share it with me over on social media using @CosyRosieUK, and I will see you ready to start our side panels very soon.